It's about 5 weeks to go before the start of the Paris Brest Paris, and most of the randonneers that I know that are participating are actively looking at various strategies as to how they are going to manage their sleep during the Paris Brest Paris. Now, that seems to be one of the most common topics on Facebook at the moment, and I've seen various strategies being put forward as to how to manage with their sleep, especially in the first 600 kilometers of the event. From what I've seen, the goal for many people is to be able to ride from Rambouillet to Brest uninterrupted. Try to get there as quickly as possible, then have a sleep, and then make their way back to Paris. That led me to think, how practical is that kind of approach for me as an individual to be able to follow during the Paris Brest Paris, knowing that I start in the mid-afternoon of Sunday the 20th of August. So I was super ambitious, and I registered for the first wave of riders to depart at 4 p.m. on the 20th of August. And that in itself poses quite a few logistical issues with regards managing sleep. Over the past few weeks, I've undertaken a series of test rides to see exactly how does my body and mind respond to starting at 4 p.m. and then riding through the night. I live in Saskatchewan in Canada, which is probably the second flattest place on earth, apparently just after the Netherlands. We have an elevation gain of about 90 meters per 100 kilometers. So that's like an extremely flat place. And somebody told me that, the only other place that they can actually achieve that would be on a velodrome in Spain. So it gives you an idea as to the challenges we actually have in Saskatchewan when it comes to preparing for PVP. So with the logistical challenges of living in an extremely flat terrain and having all the environmental stresses such as the huge forest fires we have up north and all the smoke that we are encountering at the moment, I decided to undertake a series of rides to see exactly how I'm going to respond to this challenge on Zwift. That's right, so I've actually decided to do my 600 kilometer ride, or replicating the first half of the Paris Brest Paris on Zwift. And what I've done on Zwift is that I've chosen a route that gives me an elevation gain of about just more than 1,000 meters per 100 kilometers. I, of course, have done it on a few occasions. So once I did it with a pace partner, and on another occasion I did it as a free ride, just to see how I would actually be able to pace myself over that kind of distance. And then I did a third ride where I did an overnight ride on Zwift with a pace partner with the same type of elevation gain, and then I did a ride outside with a group of friends to try to see if riding in real life with people in the second half of that 600 would make a difference and actually help me to be able to stay awake. To replicate what I anticipate is going to happen on the start day, on the 20th of August, I made sure that I try to sleep as much as possible the night before. So for the first attempt, I actually got up at 6 a.m. in the morning. I had breakfast and I went back to bed and I slept until about 11 a.m. So altogether, for that first attempt, I banked a total of about 11 hours of sleep prior to entering that challenge. On the second time that I did that, I got up at 7 a.m. in the morning after about an 8 to 9 hours sleep. I wasn't able to then go back to bed, and I stayed up for the rest of the day until my 4 p.m. start later that day. And for my third attempt that I tried the same thing where I went outside in the second half of the 600, I actually got up at 7 a.m. and I stayed awake right until 4 p.m. and then started the ride. So for all three events, I actually started at about 4 p.m. in the afternoon and got onto this route, which gave me an elevation gain of 1,000 meters per 100 kilometers. What I found was that the first 300 kilometers for all three of these challenges was absolutely perfect. So I'll just give you a breakdown of exactly the times that I encountered following an average speed of about 25 kilometers per hour. But on each of these rides, when I got to the 120 kilometer mark, which corresponds roughly to Montagne or Pêche, I felt pretty good. Okay, and I got there at about 8:50 in the evening with a 25-kilometer average speed. So that gave me about 4 to just less than 5 hours to complete the first 120 kilometers. I know that this is going to be probably a little bit slower than most people are going to be doing in PvP. I understand that most people are going to be, totally bombing it. They're going to just, get into a really fast group and probably get to Montagne much earlier. But I was trying to see, more than trying to complete the distance as quickly as possible, my challenge was to see how does my body hold up and how does my mind hold up when following an extreme sleep deprivation process. I got to the equivalent of Montagne at 8:50 in the evening, and I felt pretty good. And once I got there, I got off the bike, had a quick washroom break. I did a 3-minute break. I actually used the coffee function on Zwift, which gives you the opportunity to stay with the pace partner while going to the washroom. I had a quick break, got back on the bicycle, and then continued. That allowed me to get to the distance of 204 kilometers, which corresponds with Vilaine El Jouel. At this stage, I have to make clarification in that I have not used any caffeine products. I try not to use any stimulants because what I would like to do is see exactly how does my body cope under these sleep deprivation conditions. We are theoretically at Vilaine El Jouel, 9 minutes past 12. So just, so 9 minutes past 12. So we're looking at it. That's 8 hours and 9 minutes of riding to get to Vilaine. Good contact points are also perfect. Yeah, it's a lot harder than what I expected. Feeling really tired, and I just can't seem to get through this night riding. It's a lot harder than what I expect. Okay, I'm gonna try and go and eat something, drink something, and have a quick little rest, and try to rejoin the pace partner in a few minutes time. And exactly the importance of this is that it gives me going to happen by starting at 4 p.m. at home in the afternoon in the daylight, and then riding through to midnight, and knowing that this would be approximately the time and the place that I would arrive at, and then trying to get the sense of what it's like in the middle of the night, to be able to then negotiate things such as going to the checkpoint, finding a washroom, parking my bicycle, finding my bicycle. How will things actually, it's to give me a sense of exactly practical sense to actually undertake all of these activities. I try to quickly catch up with the pace partner. I didn't have the option of a coffee function at this stage, so I had to make a bit of effort, catch the pace partner. And once I got to the pace partner, I felt comfortable once again. I was able to do the climbing, do the distance. I kept it at 25 kilometers per hour, and I got to the next landmark. My next landmark was at a distance of 292 kilometers, which corresponds more or less with Fougeray. Okay, so that's 292 kilometers, and the time is now 4:04. So 292, just under 300 Ks, and that's 12 hours. 12 hours, and that will take me to Fougeray. So, okay, so it's just starting to, just a bit of light outside. I suppose during PvP there probably won't be much light, but this gives me an idea as to more or less what to expect after 12 hours of riding. So hopefully to get to Fougeray. The next stop is going to be Tintignac. I'm just looking at the chart at the back there. Tintignac at 5:35. See how that goes. Okay, I'm going to take a little rest. I need to sleep. I'm too exhausted. Physically and mentally, I can't explain it. It's not even 300 Ks, but yeah, I'm tired. My aim with this was to try to see how do I cope with sleep deprivation, but at the same time I could feel that I was starting to fall asleep on the bicycle. So I thought, okay, well, if this is what it's going to be like in practical terms on the bicycle, I better get off and just have a quick little nap, just to refresh quickly, and then get back on the bike and try to push on. So that's exactly what I did. So the equivalent of Fourgeray, I actually found that I had to have a really quick little sleep. I slept for about 20 minutes to 30 minutes, a quick little nap on the carpet next to the bike. I had the doors open so I could get the cold air from outside, just to try to replicate it. I should have perhaps actually gone to sleep outside in a sleeping bag or in a space blanket, just to make it more authentic. But that's all in retrospect. It's always easier to know what to do in retrospect. When I got to the equivalent of Tintiniac at 3:53, I know that this is an official checkpoint, so I know we have to stop. So what I did was, even though I felt fresh and alert, my body still felt good, I got off the bicycle. Now, I got to this point at about 7 a.m. in the morning. So it once again gives me an idea as to that I've now been able to ride from 4 p.m. in the afternoon right through to Verlaine at midnight, and then through to Tintiniac at about 7 o'clock in the morning. So it gives me an idea as to more or less, what I should anticipate. Now, being in the morning, having had a bit of a sleep just about a few hours earlier, I was feeling pretty good. I had a quick 10-minute break, mimicked that I was going to get my car checked, went to the washroom, had a quick little something to eat, got back on the bicycle, proceeded to once again catch up with the pace partner, stayed at 25 kilometers per hour until I got to my next checkpoint, which was at 435 kilometers, which is equivalent to arriving at Ludiac. Ludiac, it's 435 kilometers. Elevation gain is 4,983 meters. And this never gets easy. Yeah, it just seems to get harder each time. I know for most people, from what I've seen on Facebook, is that Ludiac is going to be the place that most people are going to stop. I understand that that's where most people are going to get their drop bags, going to be able to refresh, change clothes, get more electrolytes, change electronics, get batteries, get some bike service, offload stuff that they don't need, get more supplements, electrolytes, gels, all of that from their bags. So I know that that's going to be a place that is going to be really quite congested. I know that things are going to be a little bit slower because of the sheer volume of people that are going to be at Ludiac. When I got there, I gave myself a little bit of a longer break. Fortunately, at this stage, I did not have the urge to sleep. I got there at just about midday, so about 12 p.m. in the afternoon, and I was at this stage riding about 16 hours altogether, with that half an hour's sleep that I had earlier at 292, which is at Fourgeray. Now, just to say that is what I did on 2 virtual rides, where I did the full ride on Zwift, whereas the last ride that I did was I rode the 300 kilometers, which was just less than that of reaching Tintiniac on Zwift. Had a sleep for about 45 minutes at Tintiniac, or at least 300 kilometers, and then I drove to the start of a in real life ride. I went to ride with my cycling club, and I tried to do as long as I could with them, and we essentially did about 160 kilometers in real life ride. And the idea was that I just wanted to see, how do I function after riding through the night. With the virtual rides on both occasions, when I got to Ludiac, even though it was at midday, I was a lot more fatigued compared to when I rode outside with friends up to the 460 kilometer mark. And so once again, it gave me the sensation that interacting with people, talking to people, following wheels, getting into the wind, doing some pacing up front, drafting, that constant interaction, constant activity and movement must make some kind of difference. I think that is a lot more beneficial to trying to stay awake. Sitting on Zwift, just staring at the screen, listening to some music or watching a video doesn't have the same kind of stimulation. And I found that I became a lot more tired during the virtual ride compared to the in real life ride. I must admit though that even though I intended to do a full 600 for the last ride, where I rode outside with friends and then come back and do another 120 kilometers on Zwift, inside it didn't quite work out the way I intended to. Just with all the traveling and driving up and down, I just lost too much time, and I just couldn't actually do that, complete that full challenge. But in the 2 virtual rides, once I got up from a sleep at midday, I got back on the bicycle and rode from the equivalent of 435 kilometers to the next checkpoint, which was going to be at a distance of 514 kilometers, which is equivalent to riding up to Carhay. It's now 4:26 p.m. in the afternoon, so I've been riding for 24 hours and 26 minutes. I should have been in Brest by now. I'm only in Carhay, so I'm 100, at least 95 kilometers behind. Definitely feeling a lot better after the sleep. So once again, there's a strong correlation between sleeping and performance. Yeah. So I just got to keep moving. I'm going to have a short little break once again and then try to head off back down to Brest. Set off immediately again and rode all the way to 604 kilometers, which is equivalent to riding up to Brest. 6,700 meters elevation. Oh, that's a lot of riding for one day. So that's been 24 hours riding time, but total elapsed time is now almost 9 o'clock, 10 to 9. So we're looking at about, that is 29 hours of riding. I'm going to take an hour break. I'll reassess the situation and I'll see if I've got enough energy to try to come back. And I think, if I maybe just had another short little sleep there, I probably will feel good enough to be able to then ride as far as I can on the return leg. I think in terms of the Paris Brest Paris, I still need to confirm, but I think, I may need to sleep somewhere along the route, whether it's going to be at Fougeray or whether it's going to be at Ludiac. I don't know if I, at this stage, will be able to stay awake for the full 600 kilometers up to Brest. I'm going to try this once more in the coming week. I'm going to try one more test where I try to see how far I can go and if I can actually do this all outside and do a 600 kilometer ride. I think the biggest challenge here is actually the banking of the sleep. Trying to sleep the night before starting the event and then sleeping during the day of the event. And as I've spoken to my friend Joe previously, I think that's going to be a really big challenge. It depends, of course, I think on a number of things, where the accommodation is going to be, how far from Rambouillet and how far we've got to travel in to actually do that. Also depends on the place that you sleep. I mean, if there's going to be lots of noise, lots of activity in the surroundings, if you have noisy neighbors, you might not be able to sleep as well as you want to, and you might have some interruptions. Of course, the circumstances of the ride itself, of the event, all the excitement, anxiety, the stress, is all going to play a role and, might interrupt you with sleep. There's the question about whether, we should use some kind of sleep aid, whether it's natural or pharmacological. That's all something that's up to the individual. You've got to decide and you've got to actually test that before the time to make sure, is this something that you can cope with? Does it give you a bit of a hangover? Do you feel very groggy? Or are you completely alert, or do any of these actually work for you to actually help you to get to sleep? So lots of unanswered questions in that regard, as well as maybe trying to avoid stimulants just before you go to bed. Try to not have any coffee, chocolate, any caffeine containing products. Try to avoid the use of electronics, anything that can stimulate the brain and prevent you from sleeping and banking as much time as you would like and that you might need for the event. So there's a lot of things that you need to think about in the process of actually trying to bank as much sleep as possible before the ride. I don't know whether it's actually possible to actually have like a power nap just immediately before you get into the start group. It's probably not going to be practical. I suppose there's going to be so many people at the start and you've got to do your bike check. It's going to be so busy. I don't know if that's going to be really quite practical, but that's definitely something to consider, is maybe just doing a quick power nap for about 20 minutes, half an hour just before you actually get to start. Also know that people say that, even the best laid plans never seem to work out. Once you ride PVP, there's always something to throw you off, whether it's mechanical illness or something else. But I think, at least if you have some idea as to what your body can expect and how you can manage with sleep, I think, it probably puts you in a better position and maybe will allow you to be able to overcome those obstacles when you do encounter them. Okay, well, I would love to hear how you are actually preparing for the Paris Brest Paris. What is your strategy for sleep? What are you going to do? Are you going to go all the way to Brest? Are you going to sleep before the time? Are you going to sleep at all during the ride? Are you going to have other sleeping strategies? How are you going to prepare to bank as much sleep as possible? And what kind of advice can you give me to be able to make sure that I can be as well rested as possible before and during the ride? And you want to see more of these videos, please press that subscribe button. And if you've enjoyed this video, please press that like button. Until the next video, stay safe.